Well, I've always thought it was funny. There is not a liberal or a conservative way to sort of count things.
That's right. I mean, in my job, it's to hold all levels of government accountable, no matter who holds those offices. We've done that since I took this office about 20 months ago, and we'll continue to operate it independently. We'll be fair and thorough and then report results to the public.
Well, the reason why we asked you on the show today is this new report you have on, which I know I said this earlier, a lot of attention, a lot of media coverage is sort of talked about a lot of things that don't really make a lot of sense or don't really affect people day to day. But this story or this audit you did on local governments should put a chill into everyone. What did you do and what did you find out?
Well, we looked for compliance with the Sunshine Law. The Sunshine Law exists for government to be transparent and accountable to its citizens. It's the mechanism in which citizens can request public information from their government. And look, my office gets complaints on a regular basis that they feel like they're getting shut out of government. They don't know when meetings are, they don't have access to meeting minutes or other public records. So what we did for this report is send a letter in plain form prepared in a way that resembled how a citizen might request public information from their government. We sent it to over 300 local governments across the state, including county, city, school districts, and a variety of special taxing districts.
And of those, so it was a sample of over 300, right? It was a cross sample, north, south, east, west, big and small.
That's right. It was a random sample of 300 local governments all across the state. And the letter was, again, in plain form because we wanted to get a clear picture of what the average citizen might experience when requesting information from their local government.
What did you ask for?
We asked for simple items, meeting minutes, agenda, a posting of a notice that the meeting was going to be held, who the records custodian was, and then a yes or no question. So very simple, low-hanging fruit for local government to have access to. We wanted to make it simple because we didn't want to run into stumbling blocks on cost or a long time to investigate and try to fulfill our request. An average citizen might just want the meeting minutes from a meeting because they weren't able to attend, but they wanted to understand how decisions were made that will affect them.
So you didn't ask for anything outrageous. You asked for a very simple minutes, agenda, and where it was posted. And what did you find out, Auditor Nicole Galloway?
We found that only 30% of our sample was in full compliance with the Sunshine Law, meaning that only 30% of the 300 that we sent letters to responded timely and then provided the information that we requested.
What were some? Now, you got some that didn't even respond at all, right?
Right. We had about 16% that did not respond at all. We had several that sent us a letter back asking us for more information about ourselves, maybe requiring us to go down to the courthouse to get the information. Some said, I don't know who you are or what you're going to do with this information. It's proprietary, and so we won't send it to you. But come on, it's meeting minutes. That's not proprietary information. Let's not forget that government is owned by the people. It's the people's government, and so the meeting minutes and what is discussed under the Sunshine Law are accessible to citizens.
How many cities and towns, municipalities wanted to charge you exorbitant fees for this information?
We had several that wanted to charge us fees. And look, under the Sunshine Law, local governments can charge some reasonable fees to fill a sunshine request. However, given the simplicity of the information, it is unreasonable that there would be high dollar amounts. For instance, a library district over in Independence, Missouri, asked us to pay $80 for records and for meeting minutes, and that is just an unreasonable amount to fulfill this request.
Nicole Galloway, what are the rules? What is, do you have to tell the town who you are before you're allowed to get information? Do you have to go to the courthouse to get this information?
No. Public records are public records. As a citizen, you have a right under the Sunshine Law to access those public records, and it's the responsibility of the local government to follow that law and provide you that open public record information. They do not need to know who you are, what you're using it for. They do not need to meet you in person. And look, citizens, again, this is citizen information. It's a citizen's government, and they have a right. They have a right to know what's happening within their government.
So what open records and the Sunshine Law, and we do all this all the time when it comes to radio and television and newspapers. We all the time ask for public information, and we fight this battle every day. But what is considered open? Like if I sent a letter to Steve Stanger asking him for all of his emails on his county account, should I be allowed to look at all of those things?
You know, the Sunshine Law does provide for open records, and there are certain exemptions under the law. Those exemptions are pretty narrow. For instance, if an entity went to a closed session under the law, and if that's allowed, to talk about a contract negotiation, that is allowed. However, they have to vote to go into closed meetings. They have to still take minutes of those closed meetings, and they have to, if there's any votes or action, they have to disclose that within a certain time period. So even though there are certain exemptions under the law, there is still many things that need to be open and to be disclosed to the public.
What about emails? What about emails?
Emails would be accessible to the public.
So if I live in a town and I want all the emails that mayor has sent on his government email server or his government account, as a citizen of Missouri or a citizen of the United States, I have a right to see his emails.
You do have a right to request those and see those. There may be some things that are exempt under the Sunshine Law that would not be part of your request, but overall, generally, yes. You have access to open communications that are covered under the Sunshine Law. And look, in our audit that we did, in our review here, we didn't go that far. We tried to keep it as simple as possible because we wanted to see what an average citizen would go through. And still, there was only about 30% full compliance with our request.
So what happens now? Do you go back and talk to these counties and these towns? What's the next step here? Because 70% is clearly unacceptable.
Right, it is unacceptable. And I think what this shows is that in some cases, citizens are getting shut out of their government, and that has a chilling effect on how Missourians view their local government and how decisions are made on their behalf. It causes citizens to lose faith in their government, and for us, we audit compliance with the Sunshine Law in every applicable audit that we do. We put together top 5 lists to try to educate folks on what we see are the high-risk areas or the non-compliance issues we see all the time. We let local government know we are going to audit compliance with the Sunshine Law, and we will continue to shine a light on these issues to hopefully see progress and compliance at local governments. Because again, I believe so strongly this is the way that citizens can have access to their information, their public information, and understand how decisions are made on their behalf.
Right, because if somebody's putting in lights in a football field in your town and you don't want it, but you want to know when they're discussing, if they don't post the meeting, you'll never know, and so the decision happens without anybody knowing about it. That sort of is the worst part of government, right? I mean, that's if you don't know when the meeting is and what they're discussing in the meeting, how can anybody go and fight City Hall?
That is absolutely correct. That is a great example. And again, when citizens get shut out of their government and the decisions that are made on their behalf, it leads to a distrust in government. And the Sunshine Law exists for government to operate transparently and with accountability to its citizens.
Nicole Galloway, auditor of the state of Missouri. How many, impossible to answer, but I'll ask it anyway. How many of the 70 was nefarious? And how much of it was it they just didn't know the rules?
I think that people know that the Sunshine Law exists. They may not know all of the details. But look, again, we were not requesting hard information. We were not requesting things that would be complicated to fulfill and to to give up at the local government level. And so I just don't think that that is an excuse. And, it's disheartening to me when we see about 16% just not respond at all.
Right. Because I'd love to know what the results were if you actually asked for the same thing using your state letterhead.
I suspect that the results would be a bit different because knowing that it's coming from the auditor's office, it might get a little bit more attention. But that's why we sent it in plain letter form, because I wanted to know how the average citizen, the person that's concerned about what's happening at their local government with their local leaders, how would they interact with their government? And I think what we see here is that in many cases, citizens are getting shut out of their government.
Nicole Galloway, auditor of the state of Missouri, you don't have the enforcement arm under your rule. You just count things up. What do you want people to know now that this is out? What do you want the citizens of Missouri to understand and to sort of take away from this report?
I want the citizens to know that they have a right to public information under the Sunshine Law in their local government, and I want them to know that we will continue to hold all levels of government accountable to the citizens they serve, and we will keep shining a light on this issue. We will keep educating until we can see movement and improvement. She
is like a giraffe at the zoo. She's an elected Democrat still in the state of Missouri. It's a lonely party when you go out to lunch, Nicole Galloway.
Being an auditor is kind of lonely anyway, because no matter who you are, I'm going to audit you and I'm going to hold you accountable.
I mean, I can be an auditor, and I can count the number of elected Democrats in the state. One, you. Nicole Galloway, thanks for checking in. I'm sure we'll talk down the road. Thanks for checking in.
Thank you.
State Auditor Nicole Galloway with a new report, a newly released audit that shows that 70% of the towns and cities that a random sample, 70% did not successfully complete the Sunshine request from her office, which is, it should put a shiver down every single person's spine. And there should be pitchforks. And you want to protest? You really want to protest? That's what you should protest over. Because you've got 70% of the communities not telling its citizens the simplest of things, like when there's a meeting, what's on the agenda, what's going to be talked about, who are you telling about these meetings? That is really very shocking. Won't get much attention. It won't get talked about. Won't get covered as much. But that is dangerous. But no one listens to me. 924, Big 550.